Imagine fighting so often that you don't even feel fear anymore, or adrenaline, or even anger. Imagine throwing a punch becomes as automatic as, I don't know, taking a breath, where the act of violence itself just stops feeling, well, violent. For some people, this is a sport. For others, it's just life. But for the human body and mind, it's this deep, profound transformation that we're going to dive into.
Okay, so think about it. The first time you're in a real fight, your body just goes into overdrive, right? It's a survival machine. Your brain floods you with adrenaline and cortisol. It's this massive hormonal storm. But what happens when that storm isn't some rare event? What if it's the daily forecast? What happens when your body and your mind don't just put up with chaos, but actually adapt to it, and maybe even start to need it? Let's break down how this happens, and we're going to start with the body.
So, this whole transformation, it really begins on the surface. We're talking about the physical self. See, before the mind can really truly change, the body has to learn how to take a punch. It has to learn to absorb impact and how to start treating pain not as this big red warning light, but more like a conversation. This first phase is all about brute force adaptation, where your body literally starts to harden itself against the world.
Right, so this hardening process, it starts with just pure raw panic. That first time you get hit, your muscles lock up, you can't breathe, and your brain is just screaming one thing: survive. But with repetition, something incredible starts to happen. Your body starts to learn the rules of this new game. Your skin literally gets thicker. Your muscles learn how to roll with the impacts, how to absorb them. And maybe most amazing of all, your nerves actually start to go numb, completely changing how you even process pain.
And this, right here, this is the most critical shift in this first phase. Pain stops being a red alert. It's no longer your body screaming at you to stop. It just becomes data. It's a message your brain gets and immediately turns into strategy. It's like, okay, that's where his guard is weak, or I got to shift my footing. That raw, primal warning signal gets muted, and what's left is just cold, tactical information.
So, how in the world does this numbness actually happen? Well, one of the key things is the development of what you can basically call microcalluses, but on the nerves themselves, especially in the face. Yeah, think about that for a second. It's the body creating its own natural anesthetic, just through the sheer force of getting hit over and over again. Every single blow helps build this invisible shield, letting a fighter take hits that would absolutely incapacitate a normal person.
But look, a hardened body is really only half the story. Once that physical foundation is laid, the change starts moving deeper. It goes from the skin and the muscles inward until it starts rewiring the very core of our emotions, our instincts. And this is phase 2. This is when the brain itself learns to go cold.
And the change is it's night and day. For most of us, when we're in danger, the amygdala, that's the brain's little alarm system. It goes crazy, right? Unleashes a jolt of panic. But in a habitual fighter, that alarm gets silenced. The body doesn't pump out that same massive dose of adrenaline. The heart rate stays under control. The whole fight or flight instinct gets replaced by this calm, precise, learned attack. What was once pure terror, it becomes just another day at the office.
But there is a huge cost to this cold-blooded calm. When the fear disappears, a piece of your empathy can go right along with it. The brain starts to see violence not as this terrible last resort, but as a normal, even effective tool for solving problems. The lines just get blurry. The prefrontal cortex, that's the part of your brain that thinks about consequences. It starts to lose the argument with that primal, reptilian part that just wants to act.
And you might think this takes forever, but this whole process happens shockingly fast. After just a handful of fights, that initial anxiety, it starts to fade away. Confidence starts to build. Within a few months, you can see emotional responses just flatten out. Those physical reactions to fear, they're way down. But that short-term gain, it comes with a terrifying long-term price. You stretch that timeline out to years, and the thousands of little impacts start adding up, leading to a massive risk of permanent, life-altering brain injury.
And that brings us to the final, and honestly, the most tragic phase of this whole adaptation. The body can only take so much punishment. After years and years of withstanding impact after impact, the very thing it was designed to protect, the mind, it just starts to break down under all that stress. This is the last phase, where the brain's defenses are finally and permanently just overwhelmed.
In the boxing world, they have a name for it: fighter syndrome. The medical term is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, and it's caused by thousands and thousands of tiny impacts to the head. We're not just talking about the big knockout blows here. It's the accumulation of every single jab, every sparring session, every hit in training. To put it simply, it's like the brain is aging decades ahead of schedule. It's just wearing out long before its time.
And the symptoms? They're absolutely devastating. The damage usually hits areas like the hippocampus and the frontal lobe, the parts of your brain that control memory, judgment, and self-control. This leads to severe memory loss, wild, unpredictable mood swings, slurred speech, and, tragically, a lot of aggression outside the ring. That incredible control they honed over years of fighting is just gone, and what's left is often just impulse and confusion.
This isn't just some abstract science or clinical data from a textbook. The price for this habituation is paid in real human lives. We can see the devastating cost etched into the legacies of some of the greatest fighters who ever stepped into a ring.
I mean, just think about these legends. Think about Muhammad Ali, the greatest, whose powerful voice was ultimately silenced by the very blows that made him a champion, as he battled the effects of CTE for decades. Or think about Freddie Roach, one of the most brilliant trainers in boxing history, who lives with Parkinson's disease as a direct result of his own fighting career. But the cost, it isn't just physical, it's psychological too.
Mike Tyson once said this, and the source material I looked at said he did so with this absolute calm. And that quote, it just cuts right to the very core of this psychological trap. When you strip everything else away, what is left? For someone who has practiced violence their entire life, the fight is no longer just something they do. It becomes who they are.
And that leads us to this central, kind of crazy paradox. The very skills you develop to survive in the ring, the calm, the numbness to pain, that reflexive aggression, those are the exact same things that can dismantle your mind and your entire life outside of it. The body learns to take the hits, but the mind starts to need them. The danger stops being the person standing across from you, and it becomes the routine that you just can't escape.
So in the end, the science of habitual fighting, it tells us something that goes way, way beyond the ring. The human mind is just incredibly adaptable. It's capable of normalizing almost anything if you just repeat it enough. The habits that we practice every single day, whether it's for survival or for sport, they eventually become our identity. So be careful what you practice, because one day, without you even realizing it, that is what you will be.